Hello, hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. My name is Foster Hodge. That is my name. Don't wear it out. Woohoo! And
That was horrible.
That's a good English joke.
No, it's like a dad joke.
Well,
Well, I don't know. Are you a dad, Foster?
not that I know of.
I hope you're not.
Are you a mom?
No.
Okay, then we are good.
Okay. Hi.
Hey, Alexia, how are you doing?
I'm fine. What about you?
I am doing wonderfully. So let's dive straight into it. Today we are continuing our theme talking about words, similar words. This comes from the inspiration of a TikToker named Gregg. We will link up to Gregg's account in the show notes.
Yes, I think it's fair enough to say that he's a writer and not a TikToker.
Yeah, I think Mr. Gregg would be kind of pissed if we're like, hey, this TikToker, I don't know who he is. Maybe he's a famous novelist.
Yeah, so Gregg is a great account, so you can follow, and I'm gonna leave on the show notes so you can find him.
Yeah. So he talks about the small differences between a variety of words in English. And one of my favorite videos that I've seen so far is he talks about the difference between sympathy with an S and empathy with an E. So, simpatia e empatia.
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 Isso.
So, Alexia, do you understand the difference between sympathy and empathy? Is this something you were familiar with before watching the video?
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to talk about it because I think that a lot of people get confused, even in Portuguese, and how to feel about it. So when he explains, of course, it's really easy to understand, but the way that you feel about it is completely different.
Yeah, I think this is something that a lot of people do not really understand in a deep way. I think if you ask most people, do you understand the difference between sympathy and empathy? Most people will say yes, but if you ask them to explain it, most people will have a lot of difficulty explaining the difference.
Yeah. Yes, and that's why I'm going to ask you to explain to us.
Okay, so here we go.
Okay, can we start with the pronunciation first?
Absolutely. So we have sympathy, and something really important in both of these words is to think about closing your mouth with the M. So we have sim and M. Try to say that with me, Alexia. Sim.
Sim.
Just like a SIM card, right?
Uh-huh. Just like the Sims.
Cool. And M.
M.
Just like him, she and him. And you don't have the H. M.
M.
Perfect. So sympathy.
Sympathy.
Yes. And we have a TH in there. So sympathy. If you don't say the TH, this could be confused with symphony, which is an orchestra. So sympathy.
Sympathy.
Excellent. And empathy.
Empathy.
Okay. Are we cool with the pronunciation?
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. To explain this very simply, so the most simple way I can explain the difference between sympathy and empathy was actually from a YouTube comment that I read. So someone on YouTube says, sympathy equals I see your pain. Empathy equals I feel your pain. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does, but I already have a question.
Okay. What's your question?
For you to feel empathy, do you have to actually physically feel it, or just between quotes, but just understand it deeply?
Okay, that is a great question. So let me describe just a little bit more each one, and then we'll come back to that question. Okay.
Okay.
So sympathy, you see someone's pain. So sympathy is when you feel bad for someone or something or someone's situation, and you can intellectually, conceptually understand their situation. You feel sorrow for them. But empathy is really, really putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You can understand in a real deep way how they feel. You can relate to them. Does that make it a little bit more clear?
Yes, yes, it does.
So I do think that you can have empathy without having the direct exact same situation that someone else is having, but it can be a little bit more difficult. Does that make sense?
Yes, because putting yourself in the other person's shoes is really hard. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can be there for this person, but maybe you never understand how she's feeling because of many reasons, but you can be there for her. And I mean, we can talk about very, very deep situations or like normal situations.
Right. So let me try to give an example of each one. And I'm just thinking of these examples off the top of my head. So they're going to be pretty bad examples, but it's what we have to work with. So I can have a lot of sympathy. I can be very sympathetic for people that are in poor countries that are struggling to survive. They don't have enough food to eat. I'm very sympathetic to that situation. I feel terrible thinking about people in poor countries that literally have to fight for their lives to find food or clean water. I understand that situation. Uh, I think I understand how hard that must be, but I don't think I'm empathetic to that situation because I've never had anything close to actually feeling real hunger or starvation or not being able to find clean water. So I'm very sympathetic. I don't know if I would say I'm empathetic to that situation.
Yeah, but this example is a very extraordinary one.
Yeah, I told you these aren't the best examples. I'm trying. Okay, my example for empathy is I am very empathetic to all immigration, all immigrants. And I know this kind of seems like, isn't this the same thing as your sympathy example with people struggling with starvation and things like that? I would argue it's a little bit different because although I am not like a refugee, I am not immigrating out of necessity, but I have lived the most of my adult life as an immigrant living outside of my home country.
Also, your family comes from immigrants as well, if you
Yes.
think about it.
Yeah. So I really do think that I understand in a deep way what it feels like to be in a foreign culture where you don't have friends, where you don't speak the language. So even people in more extreme situations, I feel like, hey, maybe I haven't been in your shoes exactly, but I've been in a really similar situation. I'm there with you. I'm willing to fight for you. I got your back. So it's really like I feel your pain, not just I see it.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. And we are seeing a lot of empathy nowadays, especially with what's happening in the United States right now.
Yeah. And I think this is a great example that I think we are seeing a shift from sympathy to empathy in the US and civil rights with the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of people are moving from, okay, I see your pain and I understand it, to now I feel it. It hurts me too. I want to do something about it.
Yes, it's like white people will never understand what it's like to be Black in the United States, but we are going to fight with you. Like, we'll be there. We are going to be your shield. So let's do it together. It's like that.
Yeah. And one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown,
Yes.
who you might know from, she did a Netflix special on the power of vulnerability.
Which
She's
is
fantastic.
amazing.
Yes, she is a fantastic author and psychologist. And she said something along the lines of empathy fuels connection. So empathy really helps people connect, and sympathy drives disconnection. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that the starting point could be sympathy, so you can get empathy. It's a little bit confused for me because I think it depends a lot on
It's
the
a little
matter.
bit confusing for me.
Confusing for me because I think it depends a lot on the matter.
Yeah, of course. So just to clarify, another thing she said is empathy never begins with at least or, well, it could be worse. So a lot of people that are sympathetic to a situation, they might say, okay, you don't have all of the same rights as other people, but at least you have the ability to vote or something like that. It's kind of like, yeah, your situation can be worse. I understand it, but yeah, I feel bad for you, but I
Instead
don't really
of,
feel your pain.
yeah, instead of like, yeah, I get it. How can I help?
Precisely.
Yeah,
Precisely.
like the action point.
Yeah. So does that help you out a little bit, Alexia? Do you think you understand the difference between sympathy and empathy a little bit better?
Yes, of course. Thank
Awesome.
you, Foster. You
So
are great.
I'll end this episode with a personal story. So one of the most important things that my therapist has ever said to me, when one day I was feeling very sad, kind of down, and needed a little pep talk, like, hey, did you want to tell me some good things about myself? And she said, I think you are one of the most empathetic people I've ever met. Like, if you give me almost any situation, I feel your pain pretty easily. So that is the highest compliment I could have received from her.
And I just think the same thing.
Thanks, Emma.
You know that.
I feel your love. I feel your pain because I'm super empathetic.
But it's true because you're honest with your feelings. So it's amazing.
I try. And I will try again tomorrow when we will be back in your earbuds.
Okie dokie. Bye.
Bye-bye.